Excellency, President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, Tinubu Bola, ministers and ministers who accompany the delegation of the President of Nigeria, Brazilian ministers who accompany this meeting with Nigeria, my friends and my friends. This is the third trip of President Tinubu to Brazil in less than a year. He came to Rio de Janeiro for the purchase of the G20 and the BRICS. Today, I have the honor to receive him for a very special visit. The last time a head of state Nigerian was in Brasilia was in 2009. For years, Nigeria was our biggest commercial partner in Africa. But in the last decade, the exchange rate decreased drastically. From $10 billion in 2014, we went to $2 billion in 2024. It was not by chance. In recent years, governments, Brazil has distanced itself from Africa. Two of the largest economies in Latin America and Africa must have a much greater exchange rate. When President Tinubu and I met at the African Union Summit in 2024, we decided that this situation needed to change. In recent months, our teams maintained intense contacts. Minister Mauro Vieira was in Abuja in March. Vice President Geraldo Alckmin went to Nigeria in June for the meeting of the bilateral strategic dialogue mechanism. Two Nigerian ministers participated in the second dialogue, Brazil-Africa, on food security, hunger fight, and rural development that we organized here in Brasilia in May. Today, we welcome the delegation of parliamentary and Nigerian businessmen. In this period, we have already signed several agreements on defense, agriculture and livestock, security, audiovisual production, trade, investment, tourism and energy. Today, we are signing 5 more agreements in the cultural areas of air services, technology, and political dialogue. At this time, when protectionism and multilateralism are at stake, Nigeria and Brazil reaffirm their commitment to free trade and productive integration. We are committed to building a world of peace and free of hegemonic impositions. There are many synergies possibilities between the 2 largest black population countries in the world. Agriculture and livestock, oil and gas, fertilizers, aircraft and machinery, among others, represent broad avenues of cooperation. Increasing direct connections between Nigeria and Brazil is another essential step to deepen ties between our societies. We approved the start of a direct flight to be operated by the largest Nigerian airline, Airbus, between Lagos and São Paulo. We encourage Nigerians and Brazilians to experience the immense cultural and historical heritage that we share. It is key to further develop bilateral partnership. With its 230 million inhabitants and its immense and rich territory, Nigeria is a partner of BRICS and an important actor in the debates about the reform of global governance institutions. Nigeria has all the credentials to become a full member of the G20. We share very similar positions regarding the role of the Global South in a multipolar order. Our regions need to be adequately represented in a UN Security Council reformed. We reaffirm our commitment to multilateralism with the World Trade Organization led by the Nigerian economist Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala. The concern for the fight against organized crime, terrorism, and international drug trafficking was also at the center of our meeting today. One of the perverse consequences of globalization is the articulation of criminal groups beyond national borders. No country will be able to eradicate transnational crime. Criminality is evolving at an unprecedented speed, demanding urgent and coordinated action. This was the message I transmitted to the countries that are part of the Amazonian Cooperation Treaty last Friday in Bogotá. Nigeria was one of the first countries to support the victorious candidacy of Brazil for Secretary General of Interpol. Still, this semester, Brazil will designate a member of the federal police to act in Abuja to deepen the coordination between our countries. Strengthening public security also means protecting nature. I told President Tinubu that my commitment to zero illegal deforestation until 2030 means acting in repression of all kinds of environmental illicit activities. Nigeria also shares the urgency with which we need to fight climate change and preserve the planet's health. Africa is the region of the world that emits less greenhouse gases, but one of the most affected by the perverse consequences of global warming. I hope to count on the expressive participation of African countries in the COP30. International instruments such as the COP30 are insufficient to effectively reward the protection of forests, their biodiversity, and the people who live, care, and depend on these biomes. For this reason, I invited President Tinubu to support the Tropical Forest Fund that Brazil intends to launch during the COP30 to reward the country for the protection of tropical forests. My dear President Tinubu, my dear comrades who came from Nigeria for this small meeting with the Brazilian government, it is important that we say to the eyes of the Brazilian and Nigerian press that Brazil has a particular concern with our relationship with Africa and the whole African continent. Brazil has a notion of the meaning of our history, our culture, our way of being, our color, our joy, our music, with 350 years of slavery that African black people were subjected to here in Brazil. And the only way for us to pay cannot be measured in money. It has to be measured in solidarity. It has to be measured in political, economic, and cultural alignment. Because Brazil has to help Africa by transferring technology, by transferring knowledge, all that we have learned here in Brazil that worked. Especially in the agricultural area, Brazil has an obligation to help the African continent to have the same development that we had here. We have been thinking about this for a long time, and then it did not work. But now, President Tinubu, it may be true that your coming to Brazil today definitely means the return of Brazil to the African continent, not as a country that wants to have an hegemonic relationship with anyone, but a country that wants to have a solidary, fraternal, egalitarian relationship, thinking about the growth of the African people and thinking about the growth of the Brazilian people. Therefore, it is true that today is a very important day for me, very important for my country, and I can be sure that it will be a very important day for the history of Nigeria. Thank you very much.